Welcome into the official. Tonight we've got a special show for you. We are going to roll it back with So Good or No Good, another game we're going to play, this time based on new movement in the Rivals Top 250 for 2023. We're going to update you on what we've learned in our quarterback model for recruits, and of course, go over all the recent commitments over the last week or so. This is the official. Good evening, gentlemen. Once again, full house, David and Matt. Are you guys ready to get into some recruits tonight?
Heck yeah, let's do it.
All right. Well, before we get started, just don't forget to like and subscribe to this video if you enjoy what we are putting out there. And of course, go visit our parent website, campus2canton.com, for all you need when it comes to college fantasy football and NFL fantasy football. For the college side, we've got ADP, rankings, metrics tools. We've got 3 guides, the college fantasy football guide, the Devy guide, as well as the freshman guide, one of its kind publication there. Those are $20 each. You can also become a member and join our Discord community for as little as $2.99 a month. So go check that out. And now that that business is taken care of, guys, can you talk to me about our QB model? I know you've been working on it, Matt, and I think it's kind of starting to change a little bit. What's going on there?
Yeah, so, after doing the wide receiver model, we're pretty optimistic about, the analytics for high school football, but quarterback has driven a dagger into my heart a little bit because it's so hard to predict, which I forgot about since I haven't been quarterback in a long time. So, we're not getting nearly as high as R-squared correlations, which is unfortunate. I did create a working production score, though, that I'm relatively happy with right now. Has, strength of schedule, fantasy points per game, all the good stuff in it. A few things that we did find out, though: age does not matter for quarterbacks. So that's something. So Malachi Nelson, I'm sorry. We don't worry about, he's 19.2, I believe. Don't worry about him being a little bit older. If it depends on, I've been looking at from projecting NFL and college separately and combined. And when you're looking for NFL, P5 offers matter a little bit, whereas for just college production, they don't matter at all. And then with strength of schedule, that matters for college production, but it doesn't matter for NFL at all. So I've been in a tricky spot trying to, wedge all these things together that don't fit right. And it's been interesting, but it's something we're trying to get out eventually.
Yeah, thanks for that. I mean, what we did with the wide receiver model, which if anyone's watching or listening out there, we basically found a wide receiver model with a bunch of different inputs, some of what he was mentioning there and some other things that predicted over the last 3 or 4 seasons, predicted better production than if you just went by 24/7 rankings. So we've added some different metrics, and we thought, hey, we can actually do better than the standard industry rankings. And so, then Matt was trying to create a projection model for quarterbacks and just described some of the difficulties. As we all know, quarterback it's one of the hardest positions to try to project. There's a lot going on there. And I think the quarterback is one of those where you can't always tell unless it's just everything's live. It's one of the hardest things to tell in drills and metrics and film even, and because it's so much based on decision making. But we're going to keep trying, and I know Matt's going to keep tinkering. And I think we're going to continue to come out with a good product. And running back is also in the works eventually, right, Matt?
Yeah, it's already in the works. So
very good. Once again, what the officials trying to do, what we're trying to do at Campus Canton is just make all this better. Recruiting, projection, and really for fantasy points is our initial goal, but also in general, we can do better at projecting who's going to do well. David, we're going to start off with you. For Rivals has updated their top 250. There's been some pretty big jumps. I think some new 5 stars even, but tonight I think we're going to mostly talk about some 4 stars that really rose up the rankings with this last update. And I had a fun time just saying so good or no good all last episode. So we're going to do that again. And basically I just wanted you to tell us, do you think the change in the rating, I think these are all risers, but basically do you agree? And is it so good or no good that that guy, whoever it may be, has risen up the rankings? And we're going to start with a quarterback we've talked about a few times here on this program. I think you saw him at the Elite 11 finals. That's J.J. Kohl out of Iowa, I believe, who's going to Iowa State, is now 62 player overall in the country, and he is QB 12. Is that a so good or no good spot for J.J. Kohl?
I'll say so good. It could be a slight overreaction to camps, and by all accounts, he has been improved from his his junior season film. Like he's improved all around. It seems like. We'll see what he does his senior year, but as far as how he looked in camp settings, it seems fine to me.
He seems like the kind of player that is going to excel in that setting where you don't have a lot of movement around him. There's no pocket that you really need to navigate. There's no defensive end edge crashing down, whatever. Not that he's totally immobile or unathletic, but I think he's going to, anything that you can get close to just basically firing off lasers, he's going to look better at. He did rise 185 total points to get up to that 62nd overall. That's quite elite for J.J. Kohl. Matt, I know that I think we all kind of like Jurrion Dickey, and the services, not that he was ranked low, but I believe that I think On3 jacked him up. I think so did 24/7 and now Rivals. I think everybody's really bringing him up the list. So good or no good that Jurrion Dickey, wide receiver headed to Oregon, is now the 23rd overall player and wide receiver 5 in this class.
Yeah, I'll say so good for sure. I've had kind of a late bump, just like many of the services have with Dickey over the offseason. He's had so much momentum going through all the camps and just lighting up everything. He has just such a crazy high production profile. I don't hate his film, but I don't love it either. I think its raw film grade came out to the 8th overall wide receiver, or 9th for me. But that in accompaniment with his ridiculously high production score for me, which is I think the 3rd highest all time in my wide receiver database. He has to be a top 5 wide receiver for most people, I think, at this point.
Wow. So, and that's going off junior production too. So if he could even top that as a senior potentially, and maybe finish as the most productive wide receiver, that would be crazy. I think number 1 is what, JSN, and that's untouchable.
Yeah, JSN's 1. Yeah, I'm not sure he touches it, but he's close.
All right, yeah, he's a really pretty cool looking player. I mean, I say cool. He's like 6'1", 6'2", 207 pounds already. He looks every bit of that on film. I mean, he's a thick wide receiver. I think he moves really well, flexible. I liked him a lot. I mean, I think I have him in my top 5. I think that's about right. For Rivals, who I think is the last service to really update, he did move like 130 something, similar to Kohl, and he is now very high up at 23 overall. So, some services will give 32 5 stars. And so if he's still flirting with that once Rivals finishes up and 24/7, he could definitely wind up as a 5-star on all the services. I think he's already a 5-star, at least on one of them. All right, David. This is a guy who I think is a little bit polarizing potentially. If you like big workhorse style running backs, you're going to love Roderick Robinson. He is headed to UCLA. He jumps up over 100 total spots to 129 overall and a top 12 running back, sitting at running back 11 for Rivals. 6'1", 230 pounds. So good or no good for Roderick Robinson being that high, sniffing the top 10 running backs in the class.
This is a tough one. I will lean towards so good. RB11 might be a little steep, but this class is pretty weak. I'm not going to argue. I don't know. I mean, I'm not. If you like that style of running back more, like go for it. I've seen him listed at 238 pounds. I think part of this bump has to do with how he. It could be because he tested pretty well, I think, recently in some camps, and he actually flashed really good hands at the Elite 11. He caught a bunch of bombs. That was like right on my sideline. I posted some of those on Twitter. So I think, showing that he can catch the ball and he is pretty fluid. Yeah, it seems fine.
I am totally with you on the class being somewhat lackluster overall. And so I think after you get past the top handful of running backs, you probably could put a lot of guys in there. He's such a big body. It's hard to really appreciate how he moves. Kind of still looks a little sluggish to me, but I mean, I get it. You kind of have to grade on a bit of a scale with a guy who's 230 as a junior in high school. I agree. He probably jumped up a little bit because people thought he was versatile. I saw the catches and he was making some good receptions, but I don't know. I still don't see the acceleration I'd like to see out of a running back. I mean, when you have to make those really quick movements to get space in that short area around the line, I'm not sure. I don't think I'm sold, but again, I agree with what you said about the depth of the class. So you can probably, it's pretty fluid. A guy I just recently took a look at myself and graded officially for our 2023 class is Aiden Williams, wide receiver out of Mississippi, I believe, who is now jumping up 81 spots for 77 player overall and wide receiver 24. Matt, do you agree with Aiden Williams? He is kind of a big receiver, not thick, but he's 6'2". So what does big wide receiver guy think about Aiden Williams?
Yeah, I'm gonna go no good here. Actually, I'm not a big Aiden fan. I know you weren't either. I saw your film grade. Obviously, we're very close on him. I think he's like a decently refined guy. Nothing crazy in that area though. But outside of that, I think everything's kind of lackluster. I think he's an average athlete. I don't think he has great hands. I don't think he does much after the catch. So he's just not a guy that really appeals to me as, being anything more than just an okay college receiver.
I thought he was, basically all that.
It should be noted, though, I forgot to say, that he has been doing really good in the camp circuit this offseason. But
gotcha. Yeah, of course. I think a lot of these movements are probably as a result of the summer circuit. Mm-hmm. The tape to me look like he's not bad, but just kind of a guy. So mm-hmm. I don't know. David, did you got to see Austin Novosad? So we're giving you the quarterbacks because you were out there at the finals. Austin Novosad definitely been buzzy, all the way from I feel like March. And Matt Bruning was talking about him back in February, it seems. He's up to 60 overall, QB 9, so he's inside of the top 10. There's rumors he might go to Ohio State, but he stuck with his commitment to Baylor. So good or no good, Austin Novosad, is QB 9 too high or just right?
I'll say it's so good. It might be a little steep, but yeah, he did really well in the camps. I think it's probably because he has a really good, a solid floor, right? He doesn't necessarily wow me when I see him in person, but he has good mechanics. He's accurate. He can move around a little bit, but when you look, the one thing I can't get past is he had negative rushing yards. It's this mental hurdle I can't get over, and it kills me. So please just, I don't know, 100, 200 yards as a senior, that'd be good. But he's got a good head on his shoulders. And the other thing is he got a ton of attention from a lot of big schools late in the process here. So Ohio State, Texas A&M, Notre Dame offered. few weeks ago, but he's sticking with Baylor. I trust their judgments too. So, it seems good.
Yeah, you mentioned that he had negative rushing yards, which is, he's one of these interesting guys where he is athletic. I mean, doesn't he do hurdles on the track team in high school? So
He's a triple jumper, yeah.
oh, triple jumper. He's athletic. He so far doesn't seem to translate that into like on-field quarterback, functional athleticism. But like the guy is not a statue. So that'll be interesting. Maybe senior year will give you some minimum threshold and you can like give him the green light. Matt, Dante Dowdell. So Oregon has two guys on this list, some of the biggest risers. So that's nice for their fan base to be cheering on. We got another guy from Mississippi, Dante Dowdell, another huge running back, 6'2", 210 right now. And he looks all of it to me on tape. He is up to 173 overall, running back 12. So good or no good on Dante Dowdell.
Yeah, I'm going to go no good here. I'm not very high on Dowdell, actually. He's a very one-dimensional player, and he's big, but he's not that big. So I don't know how well that's going to translate. Like the way he plays, he needs to be like 230, 220 at least, which he can definitely get to in college. So that's not too big of a concern. But still, being a one-dimensional player, not overly fast, not overly athletic in general. In my athleticism score, I think he's 20th percentile. Very low production score. Can't catch the ball. Like and meanwhile, Oregon has already offered 6 running backs with a higher composite grade than him in the 2024 class. So I think he's ultimately just going to end up being a rotational guy. And he's going to get recruited over. That's just the way it goes.
Tough stuff. Well, and we still have like a year. So there's a chance. Well, I guess we don't have a year. I guess we have 6 months. But there's a chance that maybe he goes somewhere else at the end of the day if they sign one or two of these other guys they've sent offers out. But I agree with you. He's big and a sledgehammer, but not very dynamic. And then, David, it's worked out nicely to give you a couple of the quarterbacks you saw in person. And then also Braylon James going to your team, Notre Dame. Pretty big riser, 69 spots, up to 136 overall, and wide receiver 31 in the class, 6'4", 185 pounds guy. I don't think we have him rated necessarily high from the grades, as we're working through these guys. What do you think of Braylon James at wide receiver 31?
I'm going to go no good on this one. I've been pretty vocal about how I'm not a huge fan of Braylon James. He's more athlete than receiver right now. And I don't really understand. I don't really know what he did to get a spike in his ranking. From everything, all the coverage I saw from the Under Armour 50, I didn't really see him winning any like one-on-one reps or anything against some of the better corners in the country. So I'm not really sure. Maybe if he's more athletic in person than they initially thought. But he is pretty. He's got a lot of burst and suddenness to him. So maybe he will improve eventually. But 136 in the country. I don't know. I'm not a fan of him really.
All right. Well, some good news is, and actually I'm kind of doing this on the fly because I noticed these are the biggest movers, but there's also some brand new guys on the top 250 who are relevant. One of which is another guy who went to Notre Dame, Dylan Edwards, who just recently committed to Notre Dame. So that's exciting for you. And then we have, friend of the program, Avery Johnson is now rated. He's a quarterback going to Kansas State. He is now in the Rivals top 250, brand new member. And then we've got Bryson Rogers, who we've talked about a few times at various different points, who's going to Ohio State. And he is now in the Rivals top 250. So now every single receiver that Ohio State has recruited is in the top 250. So that's pretty impressive for them. So those are some of the new entries. I may have missed one or two. We did do it on the fly, but those are some of the brand new entries that are, kind of fantasy relevant for the guys we talk about on this show. And so now we get to the commitments. Matt, I'm going to let you take it away. Your guy and Matt Bruning's guy, both Matts, love Cedric Baxter. And there were rumors immediately after Arch Manning committed to Texas that, Baxter was going to be on his way. He slow played it a little bit. Turns out he did finally commit to Texas. Quite a 1-2 punch in that backfield now, huh?
Yeah, I honestly I don't think it's looking too good for Jaden Blue Hive right now, because I think as a talent they're probably about the same, but I would lean Baxter just because of the size, speed, physicality. And, after finding out Jaden Blue is much smaller than we thought originally. Yeah, he's just a really good runner of the ball. He moves well around the line. He has good vision. You see him, he's shaking backers out the second level and then scooting it for 70 yards. Like the first 4 minutes of his highlight tape was just him doing that, runs up the middle, then taking it, 60 yards for a touchdown. And that's really what you want to see. He's going to be a really good one cut back, and he's just going to hit it and go.
Yeah, I agree with you that the interesting fallout here, and this really does matter when we look at these depth charts and we're projecting a few years down the line. We all love Bijan Robinson. I know that a lot of our company who does these rankings really love Jaden Blue, myself included. We talked about his weight issue last week, I believe, down to 190. And now you got Baxter, who's at least 220 coming in. Blue's not really going to get on the field this year. I mean, to spell Bijan possibly. And then Baxter comes in next year. So there's not even really a chance for Blue to really take hold. I mean, he's going to immediately have hot competition from Baxter. So I agree with you. It may limit Blue to a bit of a rotational guy after all, especially if he's really that size. So if you think that Baxter moves even kind of like Jaden Blue at 30 pounds heavier, that's something. I have not watched Jackson Smolik, but he was committed to Tulane. He's kind of like, I think we could call this a bit of a Cinderella story, right? So he was committed to Tulane and then got a last minute, David, correct me if I'm wrong, last minute invite to the Elite 11 finals when Nico did not attend. And now he decommitted from Tulane. He's going Power 5. He's going to Penn State. You saw this guy. What did you think? I mean, I really have to say I have not watched him extensively really at all.
He wasn't out of place at all. Like he fit in pretty. He actually made, I think, the final 11 for the guys that run the camp there. So he didn't make my final 11, but I don't know. He wasn't far off. Like he was a solid player. I think this is more of he's more of a depth guy for Penn State.
Mm-hmm.
Like
yeah. I mean, they've got the stud Aller there for at least 2 years of Smolik's tenure.
Yeah, so they got Aller there, and then they're kind of scrambling, I think, because Marcus Stokes left for Florida, and there's really there's no one on the board anymore, so they just kind of like, all right, we can probably get this guy from Tulane, but I don't know. He's like a guy that like he wins the job as like a senior or whatever, and has like a solid senior year or something, and moves on. So I don't know. Decent guy, decent player.
Fair enough. I mean, good for him. He's from actually Iowa, so maybe a better culture fit at Penn State than Tulane. But Iowa's got a couple quarterbacks in this class, interestingly enough. Chris Parson to Mississippi State. That's a weird story. We've talked about it on here before, but he will go and throw the ball 50 times for Mike Leach, I suppose. He can run, but I never took him as like a guy who really wants to run. And I mean, he's probably not going to get to do much of that under the Mike Leach system, but he's a quick release. And, I saw him at the Nashville Elite 11. I know David saw him at the finals too. I think it's a pretty good fit. He does have a quick release. He can stand back there and just pop passes all around the field and move the ball. Matt, you have any thoughts on Carmelo Taylor headed to Penn State?
Yeah, Taylor was a guy that almost made our freak list, actually.
Tell me more.
I think he was on the honorable mentions. If not, then he just barely missed off. He's a really, really fast, really small guy, unfortunately. That's the thing that really kept him off. Really dynamic in that way. Just his game speed. He has really good track times, but just his game speed just looks incredible. I don't remember what time we got for him. I don't think it was as good as the track times, but just his acceleration and burst, he's just a really good mover. I would honestly comp it to like Dante Cook, but he's like 20 pounds lighter than Dante. So it's not one for one. But I think that's really exciting. He fits Penn State in that mold. Maybe he could pop off for them in the slot eventually. They kind of had Hamler succeed in that role. So after Washington's gone, maybe he can be the next up there, kind of reverting back to the skinnier, smaller guy.
Yeah, I was going to say, I mean, Penn State's had these guys be very successful for
Hamler
a few years
too.
now. I mean, Hamler, then to Jahan Dotson, and now potentially Carmelo Taylor, who, they've got him sub 10.6 in 100-meter, which, isn't Olympic level, but that's about as good as you can get. That's excellent. And, if he's even maybe faster, actually football speed, that's incredibly fast. And then we've got three kind of jumbo athletes that committed. Hannafin going to Clemson, who's 6'3", 210. David said he's going to be a wide receiver. Either of you have thoughts on this guy, Hannafin? He is a 4-star, but he looks like a safety, maybe tight end, but I guess it's going to be a wide receiver.
Yeah, Clemson and Notre Dame were offered him as a receiver. Ohio State and Alabama, I believe, were recruiting him for defense, probably linebacker. I think he must have tested really well on his visits. I think it was reported he was running in like the 4.5s and a nice vertical jump and all that. So I think that's how because he got all his offers from these big programs kind of in the same period. I don't know if he plays as fast as he's testing. I found like one play where I could get a mile per hour on him. I got like 18.7. So, but
yeah, that's not 4.4 from
I don't know. It's one play. It wasn't a perfectly straight line. He can probably go over 19 miles per hour, which is apparently that's sufficient, I guess, for college football. There's not a lot of refinement, mostly like jump balls and stuff.
Okay, so yeah, we're not thrilled with Ronan Hannafin. Then we have, and I'll throw this one to David, and then Matt, you'll take the last one, just because I know David saw this guy at the finals because he was playing out there as a receiver. Zach Marshall, committing to Michigan, 6'4", 220. So, he's got the height. We'd like to see a little more weight eventually, but again, he's just rising senior, and he did something special at the finals, didn't he?
Yeah, he got the Elite 11 MVP for tight ends, which, they're playing on air, so I don't know what to take from that, but, he outperformed Deuce Robinson according to them. Apparently he did pretty well in the 7v7s. I got a decent look at him. Like, he's got a nice frame. Like, I think he'll definitely get to 245 area. And he's pretty athletic, so and Michigan seems to do pretty well at tight ends, so I like him at Michigan for sure.
Yeah, definitely Michigan's the place, I think, for tight ends to go. His offer list, at least on 24/7, is not super impressive. I mean, it's like Arizona, Boise State, Cal, some G5s, Utah. So, not necessarily a guy. I mean, Michigan's, I think, his best offer, I'd say, in terms of prestige. So, not necessarily everyone's looking at him, at least not right now. And then finally, we have Sadiq going to Oregon, listed as an athlete. He's 6'3", 220. He looks kind of thicker than that. But he's going to play tight end, I guess. You said, David or Matt, you said, I think, tight end or maybe like if he goes defense, it would be more of a safety.
He's going to play tight end for Oregon. Michigan was looking at him for a while. That was his projected spot. He was going to play strong safety / linebacker for them. But going to Oregon, he basically said he wanted to play offense instead. And he's a pretty good player. He moves really well. He's relatively small for tight end, and he's going to be more of that that Y slot tight end kind of guy because he's not going to do much work in line. So.
Yeah, pretty impressive. He's got right at 11 second 100-meter time, which at his height and weight and build and frame is pretty impressive. He caught 78 passes for 1,000 yards and 19 touchdowns in 2021 as a junior. So, he's got some production there. I think it's pretty interesting landing spot at Oregon because they've got Ferguson, who's pretty good, and he'll feed right into Sadiq if he winds up there. And then he's also from Idaho, so probably the best player in Idaho. Don't know if that's really a hotbed state. So that
you muted it.
Yeah. That's our show. We've got all of our commitments. We've got our risers. We've got the quarterback model. Thanks a lot, guys. Have a great evening. We'll do it again next week. This has been The Official.